So welcome, and in the spirit of reconciliation, P&C Federation acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the elders past, present, and extend the respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. My name is Debbie Clifford. I'm the Projects Officer at P&C Federation. A warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us this evening for the webinar. There'll be an opportunity during the webinar to ask questions. Please use at the bottom of your screen the Q&A, and we'll endeavour to answer those during the webinar. We also did receive some questions prior to this webinar, and we also have those, and we'll also address them. P&C Federation launched the webinar program last year in response to our P&C Associations' need for more flexible access to information and training. The PowerPoint and the recording of the webinar will be available in a few days, and you'll receive an email from us when this is ready on the P&C Federation website. The webinar is on AGMs and audits. We know that this is a busy time for holding AGMs, or that you may have been starting to prepare for your next year's AGM. And we wanted the opportunity to assist you in the planning and the presentation. This webinar is one opportunity to assist you with information along with many resources that you can find on our website and in the members portal. Thank you also to the many of you that did submit those questions ahead of time. So Lorraine is also joining us. She's the co-host this evening, or will be assisting me in facilitating the PowerPoint presentation and answering questions. Lorraine is the Member Services Officer, so if you've called P&C Federation, it's more than likely you've had the opportunity to speak with Lorraine. As I said earlier, I'm the Projects Officer, and I've been with P&C Federation for 6 years, and up until the pandemic, I was delivering face-to-face information sessions to P&Cs across New South Wales. Lorraine, as I said, is our Member Services Officer, and Lorraine has been with us with P&C Federation for 7 years. Tonight's format includes an overview presentation from both myself and Lorraine, followed by a Q&A for the rest of the webinar. So we'll get underway and start with Lorraine. Thank you, Lorraine. Would you like to begin?
Thank you, Debbie. Welcome everybody to the webinar. As Deb has said, our webinar tonight is on AGMs and audits. So the overview of what we will present tonight is the purpose of the AGM, helping you to preparing for your AGM, the audit, who, why and who, membership, the elections, and compliance matters. So the annual general meeting, or AGMs, are held once per year as per the Constitution. The timing of your AGM is to be found in your bylaws, and the bylaws are generally held by the Secretary. So the flowchart shows through as the AGM is as per the Constitution, the when is in your bylaws, and the bylaws should be held by the Secretary. There is only 2 reasons to postpone an AGM. One is a lack of quorum, and the other is if the audit report is not ready. Without an audit report, the AGM should not go ahead. If your AGM is postponed, as has happened to a number of our P&Cs during COVID, the following year's AGM would remain the same as the original date of your AGM and not the postponement date. So the date would remain as per your bylaws. So a membership. The membership year runs from AGM to AGM. So from the close of the AGM to the close of the next AGM. So and members are paid, there's a membership that is paid to the Treasurer, and receipts should be issued to the paying member. Who can be members? Parents, carers, citizens living within the school drawing area, the principal as an ex officio, P&C employees, school staff and guardians. The principal is automatically an ex officio member due to their position. However, they are a neutral person at the AGM and generally act as the returning officer. The principal cannot hold an office bearer position. P&C Association employees may be members, but however, they cannot hold an office bearer position. Sorry. Any new person making a membership payment at the AGM will only be able to vote after the close of the AGM and at the next association meeting, which generally is a general meeting is held directly after the AGM. A person may become a member during the year by paying their membership at a meeting. However, they are not a financial member until the close of that meeting when the member register is updated by the secretary. If membership is paid between meetings, they are not a financial member until the close of the meeting following when the monies were actually paid. So paying at one meeting means that they're not actually financial until the following meeting. Yep.
The purpose of the AGM. So the AGM is held for the purpose of acquitting the previous year's work or monies to the members of the P&C Association. The audit is probably the most important part of the AGM as it gives the members a clear and transparent view of the P&C Association's financial status before entering a new year. You also present the President's report, Treasurer's report, Principal and any subcommittee reports. And these are usually reports that celebrate the achievements throughout the year. The annual report is presented to members to give, as I said, a clear and accurate showing of the financial situation throughout the year and the independent opinion of the auditor of the state of the books. So your auditor may make recommendations to make sure certain things are documented within your books to make the whole process much easier. So those recommendations would then go back to the members to discuss and to rectify. The auditor for the coming year is nominated, and then the elections are held and all positions are declared vacant and nominations are called for. You also set the membership for the upcoming year at your AGM. Preparing for your AGM. So you would check the date in your bylaws when you have your AGM if you don't already know. The Treasurer will make sure prior to giving ample time that all the documentation has been given to the appointed auditor, so the audit can be carried out. You would have the Secretary check that the member register is up to date, and she would check that against the receipt book of the Treasurer of who has made the payments and who has paid their membership, I should say. The AGM is advertised throughout the school community, so all financial members and the school community, and given 14 days notice of that. Members that are unable to attend are able to give the Secretary their apologies. At the AGM, you also would pay your membership for the upcoming year. If you're unable to attend the AGM and you're a financial member and you have paid membership for the upcoming year already, so you have paid that to the Treasurer prior to the AGM, however you're unable to attend, you're able to give a letter to the Secretary to state if you are nominated for a position that you're happy to accept that position. Now that might be a specific position that you're happy to be nominated for, or it could be any of the office bearer positions. So you also must ensure that the President and Treasurer's report are ready, including your audit, as we said earlier. If your audit isn't going to be ready on time for your AGM, then we would advise that you postpone it till it is, but not to postpone it more than a month. Also check your bylaws. If there's limited tenures on the position, on any of or all your positions, many P&Cs put that in place. We would recommend that if you do have a tenure, that it wouldn't be any longer than 3 years. That gives an opportunity for a succession plan to be put in place, so office bearers aren't leaving and new members have no idea of their role within the P&C. So past office bearers are able to assist and direct the new incoming office bearers. When the Treasurer also submits those documents to the auditor, they would consist of the minute book, the cash book, deposit book, checkbook, receipt book, invoices and bank statements. Many P&Cs, to make it a little bit easier, make a ledger, and they document all the motions that have passed in regards to expenditure. And then they date when that meeting was, where the motion was carried, the extent of that motion. So you may pass a motion that states a one-off expenditure or an ongoing. So you pass a motion to make a certain donation on a regular basis. And then you would also document the minutes that was in, so the date of the meeting. The Treasurer must make sure they issue a receipt to anyone that pays their membership. And we always advise members to hang on to that receipt, because sometimes paperwork gets lost or misplaced, and that means at least you've got something to verify that you have made a payment and you are a member. When you give the Secretary your apologies, it must be in writing. And if you're a financial member at the AGM and you don't pay membership at the AGM and you've been elected into an office bearer position, at the close of that AGM, you're no longer a financial member, which means you no longer hold that position you were just elected into. So it's very important that you make sure that you pay your membership either before or at the AGM. So we'll move along to the next one. So your audit reports. Your audit reports are prepared by an external auditor and tabled at the AGM. So they can't be audited by the actual Treasurer of the P&C. If you're under the standard constitution, so you're not an incorporated P&C, you can have someone else within a member of the P&C that's not an office bearer actually carry out that audit. But that's only if you're under the standard constitution. They would also have to declare if there's any conflict of interest, and members would have to approve that person to be able to carry out that audit. After your AGM, your audit must be received or submitted to P&C Federation within a month of your AGM. The audit report should be signed by the auditor and by the President. If you're not an incorporated P&C, you would provide an audited balance sheet and the annual report at your AGM. So it's a little bit different. It's not quite as detailed. With taking out insurance as a P&C Federation, you will be asked if you have provided those documents to P&C Federation. So you must make sure, does your P&C Association have an appointed auditor? If you don't, prior to your AGM coming up, you need to have investigated the options for an auditor, take that to a meeting and have that approved by the members if it hasn't happened at the AGM, or if for some reason the auditor that was nominated at the AGM can no longer carry out the audit. Again, we have to let you know that if you don't have that audit completed by your AGM, we really advise that you postpone it. No P&C, no new office bearers want to come into office not knowing what financial situation the P&C is in, and you certainly don't want your P&C operating insolvently. So again, have you submitted the latest audit report to P&C Federation? I'll get you to take this one, Lorraine.
Okay, no problem. Elections. The president opens the AGM and the president opens the AGM and the reports, the audit, the president and treasurer are presented before handing over to the returning officer. Generally, the principle is the returning officer, if unavailable, the members can elect a returning officer. They should be somebody who has no intention of participating in the election, either as a nominee or in voting. So somebody who's totally independent of the actual process. The returning officer should have a list of the current financial members, as these are the only persons who are able to vote or be nominated for a position. The returning officer also needs to check that a quorum has been met. So they do. So for incorporated P&Cs, the quorum is for under 50 members is 5, and for over 50 and over members, it is 10. For a standard constitution, it is also 5 if you have under 50 members, but it's actually 11 if you have over 50 members. The incorporated one is different due to the amendment that was passed back in May 2020 to allow for the virtual meetings to go ahead. The returning officer declares all positions vacant and have all the nominations that were received before the AGM should have been given to the returning officer. Nominations can also be taken from the floor. The call for nominations in each office bearer role. So there's a call for the president, call for 2 vice presidents, treasurer, and secretary. Also, there's a call for nominations for any subcommittee positions that are required or any school committee representation required, e.g. the finance committee. Some P&Cs also elect members who wish to be on a merit selection panel representative list, so that should the school need a merit selection panel member, they just work through their list. A P&C can function with a minimum of 2 office bearers, as that is the requirement to operate your bank accounts and make payments and authorities. P&C associations that have membership but no office bearers cannot make any financial decisions, as they cannot actually operate their own bank accounts. Positions not filled at an AGM become casual vacancies, and going forward, you would place it as an agenda item on the agenda that there's a casual vacancy, for example, for a vice president, and then at the meeting you would call for nominations for the casual vacancy of the vice president. Should you get a nominee for election, should there be no nominee, then you would make the statement that the position would be held over until the next meeting. So this would occur at each general meeting until the positions are actually filled. So where there is more than one nomination, there should be a secret ballot, and this will need to be counted. There should be an assurance that there is a second person available for support as an independent person to help with the ballot is required when counting. The returning officer is not to influence who is nominated or the vote. The result should be given as a thank you to all nominees and congratulations to the person who's elected. And there should be a welcome to the committee and a handing over of the meeting to the new president. Also, should you have a tie happen when doing a secret ballot, it's there's a couple of ways it can be done, and they're quite unique. One is the toss of a coin, and the person who wins the toss of the coin is taken out of the vote. So it's the other person who actually wins the nomination and is elected. Or you can draw the names out of a hat with the same results as the person whose name is actually drawn out of the hat loses the election. Okay, for the presidents, there's a bit of a checklist. You need to ensure that the membership fee is set for the new year. Your P&C Association will decide at the AGM whether membership fee is going to remain the same or whether it will be raised or lowered. This can only be voted on by the financial members in an AGM and not in a special meeting. Ensure membership fees have been collected for the upcoming year. Fees must be collected by the newly elected office bearers who will take their positions in the upcoming year. Usually the treasurer or the secretary will collect the fees. Has an auditor been appointed for the next year by the P&C Association? And a motion, and this is quite an important motion, a motion shall be carried which names the office bearers and their role as the signatories of all accounts and the responsible persons of the P&C Association. Because we find that this is when you go to change the signatories on your bank account, this is the motion that they are looking for to ensure that they have the right people on the accounts. We should do the compliance step.
Oh, so the compliance. Is your organisation, your P&C Association incorporated? If yes, you must send a copy of the audited financial statement to P&C Federation within a month of the AGM. If not, contact P&C Federation and get some more information. All members of P&C Associations must complete P&C Federation's member register update, which is found on our website under the members tab. This will ensure that all office bearers' information is up to date and current. So any information that we send out from P&C Federation is not missed. Ensure that the President and the Secretary have the access to the passwords for the P&C Association's affiliate emails as provided by P&C Federation. So you would send an email to affiliate support for assistance to reset those. If you have access to the members portal or you have access to the affiliate email and you can't get into your members portal because you don't know the password, you can click on forgot password, and that will send an email to your affiliate email. So it is only the affiliate email itself, so the Office 365 email account, that the password needs to be reset by P&C Federation. You would also update the contact details for your Australian business number, your ABN. P&C Associations are required by law to update the Australian Business Register within 28 days of any changes in your registered business. Details including changes to authorised contact person. You would also need to update the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission, so that's ACNC registration. P&C Associations need to update the responsible person's information and contact details within 60 days of any change. The ACNC is currently reviewing P&C Association governing documents. So please ensure you have uploaded the most current constitution. We say this because the prescribed constitution was amended last year in May by the Minister for Education to allow for Zoom meetings for incorporated P&Cs. So that is the constitution that needs to be on the ACNC, uploaded to the ACNC. They are slowly going through because what they've found is that there are P&Cs that have their bylaws up there instead of their governing document, the constitution. They might have a audit up there instead of their constitution. So it's really important that you make sure that's all up to date. Before you do your ABR up to date as well, it's also important to know that there is a bit of a sequence because ACNC, again, Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission, is the charity part of the ATO. So originally it was with the ATO, and a number of years ago, the ATO was overwhelmed with the number of charities, and they decided to do a trial split, and the ACNC would handle all the charities and not-for-profits. That has now been decided that it will remain that way. So if you update your responsible persons details on that, and we advise that all office bearers be listed as responsible persons, because people get sick, go away on holidays, and you never know when you might need to contact them. If you're an office bearer and you're not listed, they won't speak to you. Once that has been done, you then would update the responsible persons for your ABN, because they actually check back with ACNC to see if you are the responsible persons listed. Things to remember: all P&Cs are autonomous entities. So you're like the little cafe down the road, you're your own business. P&Cs are not part of the Department of Education, so you stand alone. You're enabled to be in public schools because of the Education Act, which enables a P&C to be formed within a school, but you are not under the umbrella of the Department of Education. P&Cs should have a collaborative partnership with their school and the staff within the school. P&C associations are to offer support and assistance for the welfare of all students enrolled at that school. So that is something to remember when passing motions in regards to expenditure or making purchases, that you think about who will benefit from it. And our recommendation is that you always think of the school community rather than individual students for the best outcomes, because people are going to be much happier if they know, if they participate in the fundraising, that their child is also going to benefit, rather than fundraise and their child may never get any benefit out of that. So always think about those motions that you're passing for expenditure. P&Cs can work alongside the staff in a positive promotion of the school and the school community. So it's very important that teachers are heard, as well as the P&C associations. So you might work together. The teachers who are having a school activity, they might come to the P&C and ask for some support or assistance. And it's always good that you work together in a harmonious partnership. P&C Federation is the peak body who offers advice and support and resources to our member organisations. These are the P&C associations represented by the 5 office bearers. So if you call our office, as you're all office bearers here this evening, we go straight to our database and we will double check, I guess you would say, who we're speaking to and what we have in our database. If you haven't completed a member register update, we will say to you, we currently don't have a record of current office bearers, and that needs to be updated and completed. Depending on your question, If it's a vanilla question, and we class vanilla questions as questions that can be found on our website, we will talk you through that. However, if it's a more detailed question that's getting into the nitty-gritty of the P&C, we will ask you to first complete the member register update so we can confirm that we're speaking to an office bearer. And the other thing to remember is P&C Federation has no authority over P&C associations. So we're nothing to be scared of. We're here to support P&Cs across New South Wales. We understand that every P&C may not be doing everything absolutely perfectly, and we're here to give you some support in regards to that and help you rectify that so you can start on the road to compliance. As responsible persons of the association, there are things that you're able to use or ask questions about. We would always recommend that you use mail@pandc.org.au, and those emails are normally answered in a very short time frame. It's also great to have your responses in an email because you are then able to take them to a P&C meeting and say, I've contacted P&C Federation in regards to this question for clarity, and they've been able to give me this response. When you receive this PowerPoint presentation, it will have the links in it. So there's a link directly to the member register update that needs to be completed by an office bearer. If you need to contact the insurance broker in regards to your insurances because you've taken on a new role and you're not sure what is covered and what isn't, or if there's an issue and you need to make a claim, you can email insurance@pandc.org.au and they'll help you. That's the link to the Australian Business Register and the link to ACNC, Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission. Bearing in mind, ACNC is probably one of the ones, well, is the compliance that you need to ensure is up to date and that you have provided your annual income statements so your charity status isn't revoked. We're just about to the end of our slides. So, and following this slide, we'll have a Q&A. So please feel free to ask your questions. We'll go through those questions that we received prior to tonight's webinar to make sure that we've answered all of those. If there's something that we are unable to answer this evening, we will follow that up and make sure you get that response. So this year, we are hosting on P&C Day, a P&C Community Leadership Virtual Town Hall, and that will look like, so people will register, come on board for the webinar, the town hall event. It's an hour event. It will be like those ads you see on television where the choir's singing, you can see everybody on the screen. So that's a town hall event. This is a precursor to our 100th year celebration that we will be having next year. And this year's event is open to parents, carers and members of P&C associations, and it will be an interactive forum with a couple of guests. We'll have a guest, two P&C office bearers. One is a past office bearer, one is a current office bearer, one is in a regional area and one is metropolitan, as well as a representative for the Centre of Volunteering. So it should be a lovely event, short and sweet, but give you the opportunity to participate and ask questions. And as I said, it's a precursor to next year's 100-year event. And it has, if you go to our website, the registration did open today and you're more than welcome to start registering. So now we're going to go to some more questions. I'll hand over to Lorraine and she can start those off.
Okay. First question, Deb, is should AGM minutes be approved at the next AGM, or can they be presented and accepted at the next general meeting?
So P&Cs want at an AGM their minutes in their AGM minutes. They would and should, as best practice, pass a motion. So they would, first of all, as the elections happen, you would list who was elected into those positions. You would then pass a motion to state that and name them, and the position that they hold will be the responsible persons of the association and the signatories on all accounts. So you need to have those AGM minutes with that motion accepted, so it can be signed off in order to take it to the bank. So we would advise that you do that at the general meeting following your AGM in order to take those documents to the bank to change your signatories. That's not to say that at your AGM, your following AGM, that you also wouldn't present those minutes, because anyone attending that wasn't able to be at the previous general meeting also has the opportunity to review what those minutes are. You would send those minutes out with your AGM agenda, so they'll have already seen it prior to the AGM. And then, yeah, from there you can just, they would just accept them at the AGM that comes up, because they've already been approved at the general meeting.
Good. During COVID, we only had the executive team attend each meeting and a couple of members at a couple of meetings during COVID. How does this impact voting for positions?
I guess it depends what you mean by that, Lynette. So voting for positions, I guess, at an AGM, you can only have who's able to attend, whether it be face-to-face or online. And that AGM goes ahead as long as you meet quorum. So as long as you've sent out your notification to all of your financial members and the school community, however, at the meeting, there's only the quorum there to participate, then you would carry it out the same way as any other meeting. You would still elect those positions. If they weren't filled, as we said earlier, they become casual vacancies, and they're placed on the agenda of every meeting following until those positions are filled. If there isn't a quorum, then you would postpone that AGM. As I said earlier, that's the other reason for postponement, if you didn't meet quorum, and that you would reschedule that for within a month of the original date.
Is there somewhere that provides guidance on what should be included in the President's report?
Well, I don't actually know that we do have that. It's in regards to guidance. The President's report is really an overview of the year that's been. And as I stated earlier, you would note the achievements. So we don't advise that you start naming people individually, because without a doubt, someone will be missed. However, you would thank all of the members and all of the volunteers that participated and for all their endeavours and the great achievements that you made throughout the year, whether it be whatever you donated to the school or purchased for the students, but you would acknowledge that in your President's report.
So how do we find out if our P&C is incorporated or not? Is being incorporated important or necessary?
Yeah, so if you want to know whether your P&C is incorporated, you can contact us at P&C Federation. There is two ways to become an incorporated P&C. One is through an Act of Parliament via the Minister for Education, and that comes through us with a one-off fee of $100, an admin fee. The other is through fair trade. We don't speak to the Constitution of Fair Trade because we don't know it. It's not a constitution that they all can be slightly different. So if you're incorporated through fair trade, you would need to speak to someone at fair trade in regards to that. Once you're incorporated, and we always recommend that best practice is for a P&C to be an incorporated P&C. It makes the P&C itself a legal entity. So any debts of the association do not fall, they fall on the association and not the individuals. It also means as an incorporated P&C, you're able to employ staff and you're able to apply for grants. You, as an incorporated P&C, there is a criteria that you have to meet to remain incorporated if you're incorporated via the Minister for Education. That is to remain a member of P&C Federation, to provide your annual audit to us, and to abide by the prescribed constitution. So we would always highly recommend that being incorporated is a better option than not. However, it is the decision of the P&C Association. It's not mandatory. So it is the decision of the members.
What defines an auditor? Is it someone with formal qualifications?
So an auditor doesn't have to be an accountant or a chartered accountant like many P&Cs think. It also does depend on the size of your business as a P&C association. So we have some P&C associations that have a variety of business arms, I guess you would say, where they have a number of operations, all earning an income. Because of the size of them, and they may be a large charity, then it is far better that they actually do get an accountant to carry out their audit. But for most of our P&Cs that are small charities, somebody that has bookkeeping experience, runs their own business, has an understanding of probity in regards to a P&C association, can be office staff within the school or another school. Some schools share, so a primary school might use someone at the high school and the high school might use someone at the primary school to carry out their audit. Some P&Cs actually go to high schools and speak to them about having students in year 12 carry out their audits. So there's a number of options. You don't have to be paying thousands of dollars to have a formalised accountant or chartered accountant carrying out your audit.
So, and Deb, one of the questions, can they be related, the relative of the office bearer?
Look, if they were a relative of the office bearer, it would need to be declared that there's a conflict of interest, and it's up to the members whether they are happy for that to go ahead. So they would vote on that decision. It's not clear cut because in some instances there is no other option other than a family member. And I say that because in regional areas, especially where it may be a small isolated school, the resources may be very limited. So again, it needs to be brought to the members and the members to vote upon.
Is there a minimum skill requirement for the P&C treasurer?
Well, no, there's not really. The P&C treasurer, we have resources to assist the treasurer. If you have access to the members portal, it can't be found on our website. There is a guidance document for treasurers in there. But many P&Cs can't be too fussy about their office bearers, and they're quite often happy to get people that are willing to put up their hand. We would always recommend, however, P&Cs use their vice presidents wisely. And so if you have two vice presidents, that one of them is assigned to assist the secretary and the other one is assigned to assist the treasurer. That gives you two sets of eyes over the business of the association, but it also means that if the secretary or the treasurer are unable to attend a general meeting, the vice president can step up and deliver that report or respond to that report as they're aware of what's been going on as well. It's also good for a succession plan, having more than one person within the association understand a particular role.
If we have positions like uniform shop or canteen coordinators, are they part of the executive to come to executive meetings, or is only the 5 office bearers?
Okay, so the 5 office bearers aren't the executive, they're the office bearers. The executive committee is the 5 office bearers plus up to 6 financial members. So I know many P&Cs call their office bearers executive, but they're actually the office bearers. So if you have those additional financial members, again, it's a decision of the members of how they want that that executive committee structured. And they might move a motion that the executive committee will be made up of the 5 office bearers and the conveners of the subcommittees. So that is often the way the executive committees are formed. But again, it's a decision of the P&C and it's totally the P&C's choice. If they wish to just have it as the 5 office bearers and then elect an additional 5 financial members, then that's quite all right as well. However, take into account the number of members you have. So if you have 12 members in your P&C, including your office bearers, and you want to have an executive committee, that means one financial member is not going to be part of that. So do you really need an executive committee, or is it just easier to work together as a team and just have the office bearers and no executive committee, which is fine as well?
Okay. Is the P&C watermark compulsory on all minutes?
No. Again, it's a decision of your P&C. What is compulsory on the minutes is once they're accepted, they're signed and dated. So with the minutes, it's not Hansard. So many secretaries are overwhelmed by taking the minutes at meetings. What they need to record is who's in attendance, who's put in their apologies. If we always recommend to make the meetings smoother, that the reports are received by the secretary 2 weeks prior to a meeting. They can then be sent out with the agenda, and everyone has the opportunity to already have read those reports. Excuse me. At the meeting, then you only have to ask, is there any questions in relation to the report, and they have to be answered. If there's no questions, then you can go ahead if everyone's happy to accept those, and that sort of will streamline your meetings a little bit easier. But so that the secretary would write down the motion moved or the motion raised, whether it's seconded, and if it was carried or lost. So you don't write down conversations. Joe said to raise this issue, Jim said this. What that can lead to is disharmony within your P&C, especially if someone says, well, that's not what I meant, and you've interpreted that wrong. And that's why we recommend you don't write down conversations, because everybody interprets what someone says differently or can do. So decisions and actions are all that's required.
Good, Deb. What is a quorum, Deb?
So a quorum is the number of financial members that have to be present in order to hold a properly constituted meeting. So if you only have 4 members present at a meeting, you would wait 15 minutes. If you didn't get any other financial member attend, then that meeting could not go ahead. You can certainly have a chat, but you couldn't make any decisions and there wouldn't be any formal meeting. So you would reschedule that meeting. Some P&Cs may choose not to reschedule and they will just wait to when the next meeting is due. Again, the quorum for P&Cs that aren't incorporated, so they're on the standard constitution, but 49, up to 49 members, it's 5. For 50 members and above, it's 11. Incorporated P&Cs under the prescribed constitution, which was amended by the minister in May last year, is 5 up to 49 members. 50 members and above is 10.
Thank you, Deb. Could you please clarify elections and memberships? If we have somebody who is not a current P&C member, can they be nominated and accept a role at the AGM, noting your point earlier that the member is not a member until the close of the meeting?
Thanks, Samantha. If someone is not a member if someone arrives at your AGM and they are not a current financial member, so they pay their membership at the AGM, as you said, they don't become a financial member until the close of that AGM. So they can't be nominated or accept a position during the AGM. However, if that position isn't filled, it's then a casual vacancy. Most P&Cs, as a progression, host a general meeting directly after their AGM, and that will then allow nominations to be called again for casual vacancies. And that person, because they paid their membership at the AGM, is now a financial member and they can now accept the nomination and be voted into that position.
Good, Deb. Can you share any information on audits for an unincorporated P&C?
I guess it's what is your question or information around that. So it is very similar to an incorporated P&C. You need to be able, within your audit, to show incoming and outgoings and how it balances, I guess, and it's your record keeping. So your bank statements, so it's exactly the same as if you're incorporated. So making sure the book's balanced, so to speak. And so again, like I said earlier, the new office bearers for the new year going ahead are aware, and the members are aware of the financial situation, and going further ahead into their general meetings, know what money they have available or what fundraising they need to do to achieve their goals.
Oh, good, Deb. Is it okay to have a combined online and in-person AGM? Our school P&C wants to do this so we can encourage members to participate. We are hoping the executive members can attend in person, but the other members can participate online. The DOE has a restriction on to an hour for meetings on site.
Yeah. So if you're an incorporated P&C, as I mentioned, the Constitution was amended last May by the Minister, which allows for online meetings. It doesn't do away with the face-to-face meetings because that's the first preference, face-to-face meetings. However, it now gives P&Cs the opportunity to have hybrid meetings, so to speak. And that's a combined of both online and in person. With hybrid meetings, you would need to, when you set up your Zoom or however you wish to do it, you would use the registration. So people would need to register to join the meeting. The reason for that is it gives a list of participants that the secretary is then able to check off to make sure they're financial members. So everyone online, you know whether they're financial or not. You do need to have someone elected, and you may ask the principal as the returning officer to have another staff member assist with that, because if it comes down to the voting, they have to make sure anyone that is not a financial member does not participate in that voting process. And the only way that you can actually do that, well, we use Zoom, so via Zoom, is to put them in the waiting room while the voting process is happening. So for a secret ballot face-to-face, that's easy. Write on a piece of paper, put it in a box. It's a little bit more difficult doing it via Zoom. You can only really do it via Zoom if you make yourself anonymous in the Q&A, where you would put in who you're voting for, or set up a poll. And so the poll would have, nominations for president, A, B, and C, and you could set that up prior, making sure that people are very well aware of, if there's two nominations, Joe's A and Phil's B, and they know what they're voting on. So you may put a chat up that everyone can see, so they're very clear and understand exactly who that they would select within that poll. That also gives you a record. You can download the information from your poll, so you have a record of what those votes are, along with the paper votes that have been done in the face-to-face meeting.
Okay. Is it correct that the Constitution and bylaws need to be given to all members prior to the AGM?
We would recommend that as best practice, because when people are becoming a member, they're agreeing to abide by the Constitution and the bylaws that are already in place. You can't expect somebody to agree to that without having seen them. So some P&Cs have an application form, so to speak, or a membership form, one for new members. So they have a record, they've received that. And once they've received that, they then share the Constitution and the bylaws with them in order for them to read through it. If you wait for the night of the AGM, it's not really fair for somebody who's going to become a new member to have the opportunity to really read through any of the documentation or all the documentation, because while the Constitution is not particularly lengthy, some P&Cs have pages of bylaws. So it really is, again, the decision of the P&C on how you want that process to happen. But again, you can't expect someone to agree to something if they haven't had the opportunity to read it.
Okay, is the principal allowed to be the auditor?
No. So the principal is the ex officio of the P&C Association. So they're a member because of their position as the caretaker of the school. So you wouldn't have the principal carrying out your audit. It would be a conflict of interest in not only their position as principal, but also as their position as a member. So P&C business is P&C business. And there are some things that, are only meant for members within it. So you need someone neutral that has no, what would you say? They're looking at it with fresh eyes. So they're looking at your audit with fresh eyes. They're not trying to make something that isn't. If it doesn't look good, they're going to tell you straight. If it does look good, they're going to tell you straight, rather than complicating it by dragging the principal into a situation that could not be particularly pleasant if things didn't go well. So no, we wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, so if the auditor nominator is no longer available, can we pick one through office bearer discussions, as we believe it's considered daily running of the business and have passed at the AGM, or does it need to be passed at the AGM or the next general meeting? Yeah.
So if you've appointed a auditor at your AGM, it was voted on by the members. If that auditor can no longer carry out that role for whatever reason, they're sick, they moved, you would hope that they've given you adequate notice prior to your AGM or prior to you wishing to give the documents to them for the audit. And we would recommend you call a special meeting. So The office bearers can do some research in regards to other options, call a special meeting, giving the members 7 days notice, and then the members can vote on it. If at that special meeting you only meet quorum and everyone doesn't attend, that's okay because you've met quorum, so that can still be voted upon.
With the amended constitution in May 2020 for all incorporated associations, do we just accept them to be our new constitution, or is there a motion required to update?
I'll let you answer that one, Lorraine.
Yeah, so this one's according to the acts under which the constitution can be amended, any published amendment is automatically part of the constitution, therefore deemed that you actually have it. But the Department of Education actually have told us that they would prefer that if people actually did move a motion to adopt the newly amended constitution. But as we said, however, when we read the act, there is no requirement to actually adopt the newly amended constitutions. It's automatic. It should be an automatic thing.
Yep. So I've got a question in the chat. So clarify, only paid members can attend the AGM. No, the AGM is open to the school community and to all financial members. However, only financial members can vote and participate in the AGM. So you can have onlookers, you can have people that are interested to join your P&C and may join at the AGM, but only paid members can actually participate in the voting process or the election process of the AGM. Okay, so there's another big one. Is it correct that all persons who paid at closing of last year's AGM and up to the closing of the last general meeting are considered to be current financial members? Therefore, is it correct that these are the only people who can vote at the AGM and the only people who can nominate for an office bearer position? We understand that after elections and positions are filled, everyone at AGM then pays a membership for the next year and can then vote at the general meetings that follow the AGM. Okay, I'll try and decipher this a little bit. So if you pay your membership, it has to be at the AGM, not at the close. It has to be paid before the AGM closes. Then at the close of the AGM, the member register is updated. If you have a meeting following your AGM, they are then financial members because the member register has been updated. So it goes from the close of one AGM to the close of the following AGM, the financial members. Regardless of when a member pays in between the AGMs, the membership will still finish at the close of the following AGM. So membership will need to be paid again for the coming year. I hope that's cleared it up. So yes, is it correct that only people who vote at the AGM are those who can vote at the AGM and the only people who can nominate for an office bearer position? So they have to be a financial member to be nominated and to vote at the AGM.
Okay, Deb, there's one in the chat that asks, they've sent it through beforehand and wanting to know notification of the AGM to the school community. Who do we need to notify? Just members?
Okay, no. So when the AGM is being held, you would ask the school to put it out in the school newsletter that the P&C AGM is coming up. Everyone is welcome. So school community members, parents that aren't members, they're all welcome. They can come to the AGM to observe. They can come to the AGM to observe and then become a member. They just can't participate. So they can't nominate anyone and they can't vote. But they're more than welcome to be observers or to pay membership and become a membership on the night.
Okay, our P&C use Xerox for accounting purposes. Do we need to employ an auditor if all required audit regulations are able to be met by the Xerox reports?
So you don't need to employ an auditor. However, you still need to make sure all of that documentation is reviewed by someone in an auditor capacity. So whether it be a bookkeeper or somebody that has a knowledge, as I said earlier, so they might run their own business, but it needs to have documentation along with it that these have been viewed, along with the minutes of your meetings or your ledger for your motions that were passed, in order to make sure that what is in the Xero reports also matches with P&C business and decisions made.
Is there a guidance document for audits?
So there is a Treasurer's Guide, which is accessible through the members portal. It does have some information in regards to audits. There is also some information in your constitution about audits as well. And there's some documentation that can be found on our website.
Okay, you just need to keep an eye on the time too.
Yep.
Okay, if we have a uniform shop and canteen as well as fundraising account, when doing an audit report or financial balance sheet, do we have one for the whole of the P&C, or should we have separate ones for each area of the P&C?
So again, it depends on how your auditor prefers to do it. So while they're done at the same time, depending on the size of them, so the canteen and the fundraising accounts they'll all be done together. However, if you have, for instance, run an OOSH, the audit for that may be done at the same time, but separately. So it really is dependent on how you're structured, the size of your P&C and the size of your business operations, but they all come under P&C business, so they all must be audited.
Okay, I think we've answered this one actually. If voting by secret ballot, how do you do this if holding an online meeting?
Yep. So I did mention it earlier. So there's a couple of options. You can use the anonymous within the Q&A. So you just don't have your name in there. You make sure it is coming up anonymous. And so you would just respond via the Q&A, but you can also set up polling for that, as I said earlier. So if someone's tech savvy, when the nominations are called, they can be in the back end. You might ask the principal if they're able to get someone that's neutral to assist to pop those names in the poll. If there's only one person nominated, then you don't hold a poll, so it doesn't matter. But if two or more are nominated, then you'll need to do that voting process. And polling is quite a good way to do it. Everybody sees what the polling result is. However, doesn't show you who did any of the polling. You're able to also print that report, so you have a record of the outcome along with a record of any face-to-face votes that might have taken place.
Okay, I have one. I know you have mentioned this, but would just like to confirm, if someone hasn't paid their membership prior to the end of the previous meeting, they cannot be nominated or voted in at the AGM, or can they still pay prior to the commencement of the AGM?
No. So you're absolutely right. If they didn't pay at the meeting prior to the AGM and they weren't financial before that meeting, so they weren't already a financial member, so the membership, excuse me, so the membership is a new membership. It is not until the close of the AGM.
Right.
Financial, sorry.
So can we issue receipts via email? Is that enough, or do they need to have physically printed receipts sent out?
I'll let you answer that for a minute.
I would have to say that one would be a decision of the P&C. It needs to be taken to a meeting and have the members make the decision if that is enough, if they're happy to print out their receipts, etc. So I would. Is the audit report presented at the AGM? We postponed ours from 2020 to this year, next month. Is this the time to receive the audit report? I'm assuming also that the next AGM needs to be held at the original date, e.g. the end of 2021, which will mean we will have 2 AGMs in the 1 year. Is that correct? So the annual audit report does need to be presented at the AGM. And as you've postponed the AGM, you would present it at the coming meeting. Generally, we would say that an audit report should be no more than 3 months old when presented to the AGM. So, and the AGM is definitely the time to receive it. Without an audit report, the AGM can't go ahead, because that's one of the main reasons for holding the AGM is to acquit the finances to the members and anybody who's interested in taking on a role, so that they can come into the role knowing that the finances of the P&C are very healthy and that it's not insolvent. And the AGM does need to be held at the original date of the that's in the bylaws, which may mean this year in particular that there may actually be 2 AGMs in the 1 year. What happens if you don't have an audit report back in time for the AGM, and most likely not have it back for the next general meeting after the AGM? Well, if there is no audit report for your AGM, the AGM can't go ahead, and we would suggest trying to ensure that the audit report would be back in time. Otherwise, you will be required to postpone the AGM until you actually have the audit report to present to the members. And yeah, that I would suggest a discussion with the auditor to see how long it will take for that to actually come back and make decisions then. Is there a minute template or a sample of what should be in the minutes? There is currently not a template. We have looked at some templates. However, there is an FAQ on minutes, which gives you a rundown on what should be in your minutes. So worthwhile having a look at the FAQ tab on our website to have a look at what is considered correct for the minutes.
I'll just acknowledge Nikki, who's put up a post here. Just wanted to check if P&Cs have been made aware of the $20,000 that was made available by the government due to COVID. This is currently with the ATO. Thank you, Nikki, for that information. And any P&Cs, it's in regards to employees, so you would need to be an incorporated P&C. However, we don't have the details for that, and we would recommend, if P&Cs are interested or have heard about it, that they do due diligence in researching that themselves. Again, due to the fact that P&Cs are autonomous, so you're all that little bit different from each other. It is, if that's something you're interested in, we would recommend you do some research.
Okay. The last one that's here at the moment is to clarify if a member has not been to the minimum number of meetings to be voted in, can they still be voted in as due to the difficulty of the COVID? Yeah.
Sorry, clarify if a member have not been to the minimum number of, again, that is, if that would be a bylaw within your own P&C. That is not,
because there's no,
there is nothing to state in any of the constitutions or your governing document that states that P&C members have to participate in so many meetings. So that would be a decision or a bylaw that's been put in place by your P&C only.
Okay, and we have one. Can AGM voting for executive positions include proxies?
No, proxy voting is not allowed in any way, shape or form. So I get to vote, you need to be present to be voted in, as long as you give notification that you're happy to accept and you're a current and ongoing financial member. You can be voted in, however you cannot proxy vote.
Can you please clarify the number of days notice for a special meeting?
So the notice for a special meeting is 7 days notice. This comes into play. I know we're getting off track a little bit from AGMs and audits, but this comes in play for any special meeting that's called, and it's built into, taken into consideration when a P&C is also asked to have a representative on a merit selection panel. So it is a policy of Department of Education that when a P&C is approached for a representative, that they don't have to respond for 10 days. And the reason for that is to give them enough time to call the 7 days for a special meeting, to elect someone and then get back to the convener of who that person will be. So yeah, all special meetings, 7 days.
Okay, Nikki's put up some more information if somebody'd like more info on the government cash boost for P&Cs, and she's just popped up her email address for those who are on the webinar.
Mm-hmm.
Should nominations for all positions be stated before voting?
Yes, so otherwise you don't know who you're voting for. So if you have nominations have been given to you, again, some P&Cs choose to have a nomination form prior to the AGM, and on that they have who they're nominating, and that is handed to the returning officer. However, it doesn't take the place of calling from the floor, and any nominations that are received to progress must be seconded. So you may receive 10 nominations by your nomination form, however, and they might all be seconded, and this is just exaggerated. However, the returning officer would still say, are there any nominations from the floor? But people must know who they're voting for.
Let me see.
Okay, I think that's it.
That's about it.
So we're going to get a little bit of an early mark. I'd really like to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. It's been great. I hope we've answered all your questions. Like I said, this has been recorded and it will become available. You will be notified by email when it is available for you to view. So we've come to the end of our questions and our webinar session, and hopefully you'll join us again for upcoming webinars. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your feedback on the evening's webinar, and we'll be sending through also a survey, and we ask that you complete this. Enjoy the rest of your evening and keep an eye out in our e-bulletin for upcoming webinars. Good night.
Good night.